Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Rodan. So today, I figured I would talk about anime, of course. Maybe not one specific anime show or movie or VA or hentai or whatever, just anime as a whole. To be more specific, I guess, is defending anime. Yeah, doing one of these damn videos again. Because, Christ almighty, just, okay, this is what give me a fucking headache. We just started here. Yes, of course, good old Kevin Swanson. I've spoken about this guy multiple times already, so yeah, I've lost count how many times I've spoken about this jackass. And yes, of course, he wants to attack anime because of the fact that how the industry of entertainment is changing nowadays. Yes, of course, one of these things, again, because back in my day, kids didn't swear. Yeah, that's how he sounds like to me. Even though, yes, I'm obviously older than he is because I'm over 100 years old, actually, but still, you get my point here. So, yes, nostalgia, as if that wasn't obvious enough as it is. So, okay, if something isn't aimed for the kids, or the family as a whole, I should say, then what's the point, I guess, according to him? And yes, obviously, he wants the whole family values to be back into the entertainment industry because, according to him, that's the only way you can actually make it worth its way in salt, so to speak. However, you know, make that phrase, I suppose. But anyway, yes, obviously, he does realize the entertainment is changing. Which, yes, I would absolutely agree with him on that. Entertainment itself is, yes, it's changing. That's absolutely true. But the problem here is that he thinks there's something sinister going on, something evil is afoot. So, in other words, he just comes off as some paranoid prick thinking that he has to protect the family. Protect the family from what? I don't know. He has to protect the teenagers. Protect the teenagers from what? I don't know. He has to protect the kids. Protect the kids from what? I don't know. So yes, just if it comes to some kind of, I guess, any kind of cartoon that has some kind of violence and kids these days, especially teenagers, of course, because teenagers are known for to be rebellious, would just say that, oh, that's really edgy and whatnot. So I don't know what cartoon you'd be referring to. I mean, there are cartoons that are a reflection of the Bible. Are you referring to that? There's plenty of those. I don't get none of this makes any sense. So anyway, let's just get into it, I guess. Whatever. Let's get it over with.
Americans are becoming more culturally literate, Dave. Guy walks into a mall with 4 hand grenades and 2 military assault rifles yelling, Allah Akbar.
Okay, I don't know what situation he's referring to because I didn't hear nothing about that. Well, yes, there are some Muslims who are extremists, that is true. But the same thing can be said towards Christians. There's plenty of Christians who had murdered people. So it's like, what are you talking about here, mate? Really? You didn't go there?
Everybody knows what that means. Run.
It means don't jump to conclusions.
No.
Yeah, Arabic. They're trying to do like a translation thing here. That's kind of, whether they got that right or wrong, that's kind of besides the point here because, yeah, don't jump to conclusions. Yeah, don't jump to conclusions. Like, hold on a second. That's what you're doing. You're jumping to conclusions.
No, let the authorities finish their investigations and then we'll respond. But we shouldn't jump to conclusions just because somebody is well armed shouting Muslim phrases.
How can you Christians be preaching to the choir? Don't be so damn judgmental when you're the same Christians who have passed judgment onto others. Because you Christians would get all uppity if you see, let's say, there's an anime about a young woman who has a crush on a more seasoned woman who's in her 50s. You guys will lose your shit. But then turn around and say that God loves everybody. You should accept everybody into the church. When in reality, things you really want is use women as nothing more than baby factories. Oh, here we go again, me talking about pregnancies. Oh, Christ almighty. What is wrong with me? Anyway, so yeah, you want to use women for this.
Yeah, but I think the rest of us are. I'm talking about Americans. They're becoming more culturally literate. They're understanding what that means. Anytime somebody yells out Allah Akbar, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
You should just run?
Run.
Because he might be Amish.
Run very fast. Run very fast.
You should run somebody is because it's Amish, Irish, whatever you said. Anyway, this is nothing. This is literally nothing. You're just saying words that coming out your mouth and then it's supposed to mean something somehow. Well, what are you saying here? I don't understand.
Media's having a really hard time, though, hiding the fact that the major who did the killings down in Texas was a Muslim. They're trying to hide it, but they're having a hard time hiding it, Dave. It's coming out all over the place. This guy, I mean, he was a radical. He was on the internet. He had a lot of friends. Et cetera, et cetera. And this alleged shooter seems to have been fairly committed to the Muslim faith. Yes, but we're not gonna rush to judgment on this. It's not like he was acting stupidly and arrested somebody for breaking into a house. It's so hard to be polytheistic. And our nation is pluralistic, folks. That's the religion that's supposed to be dominating. But really, effectively, it's hard to be a pluralistic nation. You can be pluralistic for a while. That is, you can have equal respect for all the gods for a while. Then you realize that some of the gods are meaner than others. That's for sure. So you wind up getting killed if you respect them too much. And again, I've said this before, a nation simply cannot afford to be entirely pluralistic. A guy walks into a INS office with a Quran in one hand and kill the infidel tattooed in the other. Folks, it's a really bad sign. You probably ought not to let that guy into your nation. He could become a czar at the White House if you let him in. Yeah. Pluralism. America is supposed to be a pluralist nation. For the time being, it will try to be pluralistic, but it will not be a very, very comfortable pluralistic nation because inevitably things sort of fall apart. America will be either a Christian nation or a Muslim nation in the end, and humanism, of course, is only apostate Christianity, and that's not going to last very long either. Meantime, folks out in the New York... I'm going to go on to the next story. Meantime, New York Times has another interesting article about cross-dressing in high schools. It's happening all over the place. Cross-dressing Houston senior was sent home because his wig violated the school's dress code rule that the boy's hair may not be longer than the bottom of a regular shirt collar. October, officials at a high school in Cobb County, Georgia, sent a boy home who favored wigs, makeup, skinny jeans.
Basically, Kevin Swanson and whoever the other individual is assuming that there's going to be some Muslim extremist that might be in the White House because of Democrats or something, because they tend to be more lenient with people. And they know Kevin Swanson and the other guy, when I say they, I'm referring to them, will get backlash if they criticize. Don't be so judgmental. And then Kevin Swanson and the other guy he's talking with don't feel persecuted. Well, we're just trying to talk about the truth, and these people are trying to destroy America. Like, what are you talking about? That is so gaslighting. Anyway, what are you talking about? What does any of this have to do with anything? I mean, aside you being, prejudiced and whatnot. That's another thing that should be really obvious. You don't necessarily need to be Middle Eastern to be Muslim, just like how you don't have to be white to be Christian. Just throwing it out there, folks. Anyway.
Mississippi student's senior portrait was barred from her yearbook because she had posted in a tuxedo. This generation is really challenging the gender norms, as we grew up with, said Diane Eversoft, an Oakland psychologist who writes about gender. A lot of youth say they won't be bound by boys having to wear this or girls wearing that. For them, gender is a creative playing field. In February...
Oh, yes, there are Muslims who would be okay with the LGBT plus community, but that depends on who you're referring to, not them as a whole. So again, you're telling me nothing, really. Again.
2008, Lawrence King, an 8th grader from Oxnard, California, who occasionally wore high-heeled boots and makeup, was shot to death in class by another student. This kind of thing's happening all over America today. Crazy things happening, folks, as we peer into the zoo and
see how the other half is living. We're finding some very, very edgy things happening in our society. Of course, this is edgy stuff, but my guess is just about every other high school in a metro area like Denver probably is dealing with this sort of issue. That is boys and girls in different restrooms and wearing different kinds of clothes, and it's just your typical mess when you've got a society that's as confused as ours is. And Dave, the Bible, of course, speaks to these sorts of things, but the Bible is a book that deals with absolute ethics, and that's what we find in Scripture. Leviticus is pretty clear that if a man dresses as a woman or a woman dresses as a man, that's an abomination to God. And so, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, Christian culture has recognized this as an important distinction and important cultural norm. But all cultural norms are going out the window now. I haven't really seen too many Christian magazines or Christian books written on the issue of gender and clothing as applied to gender. And for this reason, I think that, again, Christianity is going to give way to all sorts of weird perversions, cannibalism and cross-dressing and transvestism and homosexuality and incest and these sorts of things because they refuse to use books like Exodus, Deuteronomy, Leviticus to inform their ethical standards. Well, I think why not use their imagination where this might go, but they should realize that what is edgy today will become the norm of tomorrow. And when you're in a downward spiral, what seems freakish today, it'll become commonplace, and you just give it some time. And in a moment, on that note, I'm going to deal with what I would call the most shocking cartoon in the history of newspapers. Came out about 3 weeks ago, Bizarro. I don't know if you ever heard this one, Dave. Comes out in the Denver Post. Bizarro had the most amazing cartoon. It really shocked my socks off. Be back in a moment, folks. This is Kevin Swanson, and we're going to talk about the most shocking cartoon in the history of newspapers. Folks, we are in the middle of the greatest recession since World War II. Unemployment continues to rise after 22 months of recession. Will the national bailouts, the massive redistribution of the wealth, and the irresponsible banks really help the situation? Will John Maynard Keynes' fractional reserve embedded system work out in the long run? I mean, he didn't think it was going to work in the long run. If you're a Christian father and mother, and you care about the future of your children and grandchildren, I'm telling you, it's time to work on Plan B. That's why we're doing a family economics conference coming up here on March 5th.
Okay, yes, there will be children who would watch violent anime. Sure, that does happen. But so what? Kids gonna be sneaky. Teenagers would be sneaky. It's what they do. And okay, I don't see what this has to do with Muslims or the Muslim stereotype that is, or people being trans. So you're saying they were terrorists? Or Democrats being dumb enough to allow a radical in the office? What?
2010. This will be a hands-on practical conference bringing biblical perspectives to bear in every area of family economics. We're talking work. We're talking family entrepreneurism, debt-free living, contractual employment, inheritance, being a faithful employee, taking care of aging parents, living without social security,
which by the way will happen, saving and investments, retirement, family charity, education, mentorship, taxation, healthcare decisions, seeking employment, raising dominion-minded daughters. We have found the best speakers in America who have studied and written on biblical family economics. It's time to work on Plan B, my friends. If you have a family and you're living in the American economy today, you need to check out this Family Economics Conference on March 5th and 6th, 2010. Check it out at kevinswanson.com. That's kevinswanson.com. Check it out now.
Again, you're not telling me anything. Like, at all. So, okay, he's acting as if that there's violent anime, or violent cartoons in general, being made nowadays than compared to back then. What are you talking about? You telling me nothing. There's just nothing. You mean to tell me that there were no violent anime back in the day when you were born? You mean to tell me that never existed? What are you talking about? What does any of this have to do with anything?
And back on the Generations broadcast, this is Kevin Swanson. Folks, a lot of strange things happening, transvestism in the schools, the high schools, junior highs. You've got crazy things happening, people getting shot by Muslims. These are things not happening in the 1960s, 1970s. A lot of developments here. And folks, it happens when we abandon a Christian worldview in a nation that no longer has the absolutes that we find in Scripture, and basically say, hey, there are no absolutes, we're just living in a relativistic, materialistic world. Who cares? You know, people can do whatever they want to, whoever they want. They want to wear whatever they want, and they can be as confused.
So in order to be a good Christian woman, you have to be a specific kind of way. What? Again, sounds extremely sexist because, again, people like you, Kevin Swanson, just want women to be nothing more than baby factories. That's it. That's all you want from them, really, come to think about it. You don't really love them. No. You just want them to be baby factories. That's it.
Sexually as they want to be. And
if a woman wants to be as sexually active as she wants, she should be allowed to. If, just the same or more than my man. If she wants to have a shit ton of babies, it should be her own right, her own consent. She shouldn't be forced to do it.
it really doesn't matter because there are no absolute ethical standards.
Christ, this conversation is already going downhill. But then again, like it wasn't already. Okay, so that's weird. You're gonna really shame a woman for wanting to sleep around. So if a woman wants to have some amount of partners during the day, she should be allowed to. If a man can do it, so should a woman. So you mean to tell me that she's evil and she has no moral compass if she does that? That doesn't make any sense.
That's basically the world we're in today. And Dave, as you said, every generation is getting more and more edgy. It's hard to know where we're headed in the next generation. The kind of satire that we use to mock our society and to basically...
So again, a woman is evil just because of the fact that she wants to express herself in a rather specific manner. But how is this going to bring sin, wickedness, and whatnot down to the society? Again, wouldn't you want women to be sexually active because you want the babies? You think that would be a good thing for you? Since a lot of you people are against protection and all that, Plan B and all that jazz, so wouldn't you want her to be sexually active as much as possible? And I know a lot of these Christians don't like the fact that she may enjoy it. A woman, matter of fact, nobody should enjoy sex. Just use sex itself just to basically for production of humans. That's it, really.
Reality to something strange will probably be reality in another 10, 20 years. And here's a cartoon that somebody handed me at church a couple of weeks ago. I think this came out towards the end of October. This is Bizarro. I don't know if you've ever seen this guy's cartoons. But here's a picture of a couple that are riding around the car. A little boy and a little girl in the backseat. The little boy says, we're tired of TV, DVDs, and the internet. All we want is a human sacrifice, Dad. That's pretty much it, Dave. And you know, that's supposed to be funny. Actually, I took that seriously. I thought it was being serious. Well, it is satire. But satire always has a foot in reality. Satire isn't funny if it doesn't reflect some part of reality. Let's face it, in the history of mankind, the games like football are pretty civilized compared to games like, feeding Christians to the Lions. Although if you fed Christians to the Detroit Lions, I think they would win because the Lions are just that bad. But that's a different topic. People want to see more blood, more gore, more violence. We get reality TV. What is reality TV? The reality TV is the Roman Coliseum brought right to your living room. So I think it is satirical, and yet it reflects reality so well. We're getting bored. We're getting bored. Bored of TV, DVDs, and the internet. Isn't it about time for human sacrifice or something like that? I can imagine this, Dave, in the next 15, 20 years. I can imagine reality TV that chases somebody around an island somewhere and winds up shedding some innocent blood. I mean, I can see that kind of stuff. I can see some sports becoming increasingly violent, and there might be some bloodshed, maybe even some death in the process. And this of course, would, I think, really boost the ratings of a lot of the sports programs. And, Dave, of course...
Again, this says nothing. Okay, you would want women to be sexually active. You'd be in lines with that because, more babies, and more babies. And basically, he's trying to say that, oh, some weird kinky shit is going to be normalized within maybe 5 to 10 years, and society's going to. I don't know how he came up with that number, but anyway, so basically, society itself is going to collapse because of strange sexual urges.
Of course, right now, society is somewhat consumed with the bread and games. Now, today it's not as much bread and games as Ritalin and games. But the Senate of Rome understood something very important, and that is the only way to keep the mob or the people under control is to keep their brains in jars, if possible. Certainly absorbed in the games.
What do you mean, games? You mean like anime games, like light novel games and whatnot? Those exist. Those are actually quite popular, actually, even in the United States. So light novel or anime style type games, especially the dating type anime games, those are quite popular over here, actually. Are you referring to those? I don't know what you're trying to say here exactly. I'm just trying to piece together the very little information you're trying to say here exactly. It's just that, okay, so what? Certain type of anime is popular, and certain type of anime games are popular. They're like subgenres, quite a few actually, but so what?
They were in the game. Some of the people would go down to the games for 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day, some for 24 hours a day. They would be at the games all the time. It would be like television, except they didn't have television back then, but it was a way in which they could escape, and they could avoid any semblance, any concept of reality, and just live in a jar.
That's called ESPN, ESPN2, and Fox Sports.
I don't know what you're trying to say here, but if they were promoting pregnancy for Christians, you keep your mouth shut. Yeah, seriously, in this podcast that I'm referring to, supposed to have mentioned anime. Okay, where? Where's the anime? And what does any of this have to do with anything? I am so confused as to what's going on exactly. Okay?
Sports. Men can watch sports literally around the clock, 24 hours a day.
And Dave, please understand that the powers that be support this because they know that if you didn't have the games, if you don't have the Ritalin, if you didn't have the television sets and the internet and...
I don't know who is this they he's referring to. Who are they? Who is this group of individuals we're referring to? I don't know. But allegedly, according to him, if you don't have internet and stuff to entertain us, we could be committing crime? We were going out and doing bad things? What the fuck are you talking about? Again, just to summarize what he was saying here is that we need the adrenaline rush, like watching all these kind of sports and having women having sex all over the place in order to do something. Like having some kind of drug addiction and, of course, crime or increase in society. I don't know what he's getting at here or where he's getting to this point of view. This perspective he's having makes no sense, like, at all.
CW is presenting some of the more edgy material that's out there. They got this little program for teeny bopping kids. Apparently this show started 2-3 years ago with 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old children. And these children are basically involved in a sexual orgy of sorts. And every program is some rendition of a sexual orgy, is just, trading partners, and it's just this mess of a situation. Drugs and alcohol omnipresent in the show. They use some of the most horrific language you can imagine. The sex partners are going all over the place, and just based...
Well, of course, you're one of these uppity types. I've talked about this before, but yes, he does take issue with anybody, even fictional or live or otherwise, whatever. He doesn't like characters or anyone, for example, just saying these swear words, like those no words. Shit, piss, damn, goddamn, motherfucker, piss bucket.
a lot of pro-family organizations out there pretty concerned about Gossip Girl because it's a program that's intended for teenage children. So you got 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that are watching this program.
They're technically young adults, not really kids anymore. So yeah, about that, you got that wrong as well. But this entire thing is wrong.
You remember Three's Company came out, what, in 1970s, if I'm not mistaken? This is like Three's Company, except about 10 times more sexual than Three's Company ever was. Another trend that I want to bring up in connection with all of these developments, and the reason I'm bringing these things up because I know there are Christian children
that are participating in these things, and they're taking on these forms of entertainment. Forms of entertainment that guys, unbelievers in 1970 would have found rather perverted and rather unacceptable. But today, you've got Christian children that participate in a lot of these media forms, and they have no idea what they're getting into. I think of anime, Dave. And anime is a form of art or entertainment that came over from Japan. I'm pretty familiar with it because I grew up with manga and anime. We didn't really have too much of it, but we knew friends in Japan, the mission field, that would get into manga and this sorts of things. I can, to this day, catch a few images in my mind that probably should not be in my mind because I had acquaintances and friends in the playgrounds of Japan that were getting into the manga and anime back in the 1970s. Well, today, of course, it's much more advanced. The forms are much more professional, and the Japanese form of expression and entertainment tends to be very intense, exaggerated, and when they get into pornography, Dave, you will get some of the most perverted forms, the absolutely most perverted forms of pornography through the Japanese anime. And most recently, we got a huge influx of this stuff into America. Walt Disney spirited away the Japanese movie grossed more than the Titanic, and it was Japanese animation.
Crikey, mate. Okay, so yeah, he's talking about how there's lots of reality shows, and yes, yeah, we're agreed that it's saturated with a bunch of them. That's true. I personally don't care for them really, but you don't see me complain about them. If you want to watch them, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you like it. Whatever. But if they were promoting women being baby factories, for instance, y'all wouldn't complain at all.
I don't know if you were aware of that particular thing, but anime presentations like Bleach or Naruto Shippuden or One Piece are examples of anime that's come over to America and are very, 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 very interesting. Bleach is an example of one that I find really, really popular among a lot of Americans. A lot of American teens, Christian teens are picking up.
Jesus goddamn Christ, shit. We're talking about this whole Pokemon thing again. Again, I really don't want to go into it too much, really, because I keep hearing this bullshit over and over and over again. Basically, long story short, evolution. That's it. That's about it. Just evolution. Even though that's not what the show is about, but Pokemon could get different strengths depending on their involvement in evolution, in the sense that like how Charizard can become like how Charmander could become Charizard. That's it. Evolution itself, when it comes to animals, has nothing to do with this, at all. That's basically what this is. Complain about evolution. Oh no, the Japanese are trying to destroy America through Pokemon because they're teaching evolution to our kids.
You probably haven't heard of any of this, but they glorify in things like homosexuality, witchcraft, spiritism. Of course, it's basically Shintoism. I grew up understanding the concept of Shintoism, but it's Bleach and the Japanese anime is a way in which that worldview is used and inculcated into the minds of modern Americans. And of course, it is the Eastern forms of metaphysics, and people are trained to think about metaphysics in certain ways. And the manga and the anime is training our young people, including our Christian young people, to think about supernaturalism. The Japanese are huge on supernaturalism. They believe in supernaturalism.
Evolution Pokemon. Just doing that again. That's basically what he's trying to get. So he's claiming that evolution is some kind of supernatural thing, which is funny coming from him because God himself is magical. Of course, he views magic itself as evil, even though God himself is magical. But of course, Christians like him are trying to say that all magic is evil, but when God does it, it's good. Because he's not magic when God does it. He's not magic when Jesus does it. And he's trying to draw the connection to that. If Pokemon does it, it's because it's evil magic. What the hell?
But they don't believe that there is an ultimate God who is sovereign over that supernaturalism. Now, very few Christians actually believe that God is totally present, totally providentially sovereign in every moment. So they have a hard time with that metaphysic. They're barely there.
If Pokemon was promoting the idea that women should have kids for their husbands, or more specifically the church, you wouldn't be complaining. Again, he's trying to draw the connection that supporting supernatural stuff is no different than evolution, which of course is a complete lie. That's not one and the same. Again, that's funny coming from him because he believes in angels. Angels are magical, but okay.
That metaphysic. But they start getting this anime thing, and they get pretty excited about anime because it brings in the concept of supernaturalism. And of course, within the anime, you've got these shinigami spirits that usher away the spirits of the dead into the.
Okay, who is this they you're talking about? And Shimigami? Did I hear that right? Shimigami? Well, replay that part again.
You've got these shinigami.
Fuck is Shimigami? What? Repeat that again.
You've got these shinigami.
Hey, what? Yeah, again. Repeat that again. What?
You've got these shinigami.
Fuck Shimigami. Again. One more time again, please. What?
You've got these shinigami.
Yeah, fuck it. I don't know. Moving on.
The spirits, and that, of course, is classical Shintoism, and the whole story of within the story of Bleach is basically put within that metaphysical construct. It's a Shintoistic metaphysical construct, but it's hugely popular today among our Christian teens.
Kevin, animation.
In other words, if you support evolution, you're trying to say that it's okay to have evil spirits in your household or in society as a whole because of Pokemon? How does that make sense? Like, what are you talking about? What is anything? What's happening here?
Is one of the tools that those who are opposed to the kingdom of God have used, and I think they've used it since the 50s, in order to get the minds of children. Now, in this country, and I still say the most influential piece of media, the most forming event in many of the environmentalist lives was the movie Bambi. Now,
Yes, Bambi. You heard him right, Bambi. That one Disney movie that's considered as a classic. But of course, you're going to talk about Disney. You sure do have a hate bone towards Disney, which I mentioned before in my previous videos. That aside, what does that have to do with anything? Is it because of the fact that Bambi can talk? You realize it's an animated thing, right? You realize isn't real. You're saying that's supernatural too, right? What?
when we see animation, if you're my age,
I know that Disney is pretty much the king when it comes to animation, but what does that have to do with anything? It doesn't matter what your age is.
it's Merry Melodies, it's Looney Tunes, it's just good for a little laugh.
So Disney movies don't mean nothing unless they have a Christian value to it. That's so condescending.
But what happens in animation is the mind of young people are formed. They're given certain postulates through the stories that are being told that they live out as adults. Whether it be that the hunter is bad and nature good, or whether it be the spiritism of Pocahontas, another Disney release, or whether it be the pornographic images coming from Japan, the guard of the parents who are trying to guard the hearts and minds of the children is let down when they see it looks like animation. And yet it ought to be up higher because this is the doorway into the mind of the child. Dave, and even beyond that today, just the complete moral relativism is something that's obviously taught by the Eastern cults because the Eastern religions certainly don't believe that there is an ultimate sovereign God who determines good and evil, but you've got the yin and the yang, the black and the white, the good force, or the dark force, and the light force. But the dark force is not necessarily an evil force. It's just you have these multiple forces that are constantly battling out between each other. That's basically the old-fashioned Greek polytheism, just reincarnated in Eastern cults and in the modern world where there is no standard. There is no ultimate standard in the anime. There's no standard of right and wrong within the anime. And within much of this entertainment, certainly the entertainment that comes from Japan, there are examples where there are demons that help priests to exorcise other demons out of people within these stories, within these manga anime stories. And so you have this complete moral relativism that runs throughout it.
So, okay, yes, of course. I was saying that animation as a whole has changed over the years. Entertainment has changed over the years. It goes into what I was saying earlier. Of course, it has changed over the years. How things were in the early 2000s is not going to be the same thing how it was in the 2010s, and how it was in the 2010s is not going to be the same kind of thing in the 2020s. If you want to use more of a recent time reference, I guess. And of course, it's going to be completely different how it was in the 80s and 90s. Of course, it was. Entertainment does change, and animation, no shocker, is no exception to that. So of course anime got popular. Okay, I don't see what this has to do with anything, but okay.
For some reason, because of the artwork, the action and exaggerated forms in the artwork, a lot of children are drawn into it as entertainment. But as you know, that entertainment, because they delight in it so much, because they absorb themselves into it so much, eventually really does form their worldview.
And Kevin, if you were to go to most evangelical Christians, most of them have a yin and a yang type worldview. They believe there's a battle between darkness and light. And in the end, light will win out. But
that depends on what anime you refer to. I mean, yes, or of course, anime shows or movies that are centered around good versus evil. Yeah, that's true. That does happen in some animes. Yeah, he's right about that. But not all of them. He's again like many of the other religious people I talked about. He's just generalizing. He's just using a bit of truth to trick the listener, to lie to the listener, to brainwash whoever's listening to him.
Tough battle. You know, they're evenly matched. Satan and God are pretty even. This is a far cry different from the view of the reformers who said it is God's devil. The devil is God's devil. Speaking about Satan, one little word shall fell him. In other words, it only takes one word from God, and this battle is over. These aren't equally matched forces. We believe, as a society, by and large, that we have these two forces.
There's this thing called having a conscience. I mean, yes, in society, even in these day and age, there are things that are perfectly acceptable, and those aren't things that aren't acceptable. Like, for example, stealing. You shouldn't steal, even if it's from a bank, a dollar store, or what have you. How you shouldn't take a life, you shouldn't murder. And of course, I mean, there might be some exceptions to the rule, like you shouldn't, yeah, I mean, yes, okay, you shouldn't lie. Lying is wrong. But what if there's a serial killer, or maybe a thief? Well, maybe there's some kind of robber that's going into your apartment, and maybe there's a victim that wants to hide, and the victim wants to hide in your apartment. If the, let's say, if the thief wants to kill that sick victim, and that victim's hiding in your place, do you lie? Of course you will lie. I'm not saying you should lie at all, but I'm not trying to justify lying. But sometimes there are exceptions to the rule. You're trying to save the person's life so he or she won't get murdered by the thief and whatnot. And sometimes you might have to physically get into a physical fight with somebody to protect a stranger's life, which has happened before in real life. So sometimes you might have to hurt somebody to protect somebody else's life. These things happen. And the problem here, what I'm trying to get at with Kevin Swanson and a lot of other Christians like him, they're taking too black and white. Sometimes there's a bit of gray thrown in there. So this is just nothing. It's again nothing. The hell, Christ.
They're pretty equally matched in this drama called history. And we have failed miserably by allowing these kinds of Eastern thoughts to become the mainstream teaching of the evangelical church.
Okay, yes, something I've said before quite a few times actually on the channel, on my other channel too, by the way, is that yes, there's a decline in church attendance. Yeah, that's true. That is going on actually, and he's pretty much complaining about that. Yes, it is happening. He's actually right about that. There's a decline in that. But the problem here is that he's lacking the self-awareness. It's people like him that's making people leave. So what the hell are you talking about?
And Dave, what's amazing here is that people run through this escapistic form of art and entertainment in the games and the manga, the anime, and all the things we've been talking about because they find the current reality unacceptable. And why is that? Why is the current reality unacceptable to the average person?
And again, taking no self-accountability, like at all. It's his fault, at least people like him anyway, that people are leaving churches. People like him are leaving churches. But of course, like always, it's somebody else's fault. It's not him. No, it's not him at all. No. It's anime. Yep. It's the Japanese making this anime to make people leave the church. What the fuck?
Why do they constantly run to entertainment? Why do they soak themselves in this escapistic sci-fi, manga, anime stuff? Why? What's wrong with reality? Is reality that boring? Well, as it turns out, this escapistic literature eventually becomes boring, and they have to go to more and more intense forms of it. But reality, as it turns out, is not boring at all. Reality involves certainly good and evil. It involves the fact that we are sinners against a God who really exists. And we risk going to a hell that really exists, that really burns and burns forever, where people are tortured forever and ever. That's real. I mean, that will probably be the...
I don't know why you're actually against the idea of torture. While certain segments of the Bible does condemn torture, that's true. However, in certain versions of the Bible, or depending on certain sections you will read anyway, of whatever Bible, it's actually okay with torture. It's actually perfectly okay with torture. If you're an atheist, yeah, torture the bastard. If you're a gay person, yeah, torture him, the bastard. If you're lesbian, torture the bitch. And must I remind you of the witch trials way back in the Dark Ages? And yes, a lot of you Christians would actually burn a woman alive, which is a form of torture, by the way, if she is assumed to be a witch. So I don't understand as to how you can have a strong moral stance against torture when a lot of you Christians are perfectly okay with it. So it's like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. And a lot of you Christians are okay with murder too, and there's so much killing, especially in the Old Testament. And I don't get it. How can you be against one thing in 1 minute, then in the next minute you're perfectly fine with it? You seem to be awfully pick and choosy in what you want to preach and what you don't want to preach. And you be against one thing in a moment, but then perfectly okay with it in another. I'm confused here. What is this? I keep repeating myself. This is nothing. Whatever.
Real thing that some of these postmodern people that grew up in this escapistic culture are ever going to experience when God looks at them and says, "Depart from me, you cursed, into eternal fire." Well, I'll tell you what, reality is real. God is real. His creation is real, and it's intense. And God is really sovereign, and God really brings judgment on nations. You crack the newspaper, that's not escapistic stuff. That's real stuff. That's real things that happen to real people.
No, street more Jesus. I mean, yes, of course, you should distinguish between what's reality and what's escapism. Of course, what's fantasy is not the same thing as reality. That's common knowledge. I mean, he's not wrong. Yes, that's true. You should distinguish between the two. But the problem here, he's been condescending about it. He's really condescending about it. He's trying to act as if you watch Japanese stuff like anime, you can't tell the difference. Like, what the fuck does that mean? You can't tell the difference between the two. You realize you don't have to be Christian to be a good person. You realize that, right? You're full of shit. Can't we just finish this up already? This bullshit gave me a headache. What the fuck is going on here? I don't know.
And therefore, you got to get right with this real God. You got to acknowledge that you have really sinned. You have really broken a real law against this real God. And you better get down on your knees and start acknowledging the reality of God and start engaging in the spiritual battle against the forces that are going to rip apart your soul.
What are you talking about? This is nothing. This entire is nothing. What spiritual warfare? What warriors? What guardians? What angels doing what now? He's acting as if there's some kind of spiritual warfare. Like there's some kind of war thing going on, like right now, because of anime? Like, what are you talking about here, mate? This is just nonsense. You just spin out nonsense. So yeah, there's some kind of big, huge battle going on right there. Instead of using planes, tanks, and battleships, it's a spiritual thing. Like you're referring to. You realize this is just made up, right? What's going on in your head is just in your head. You're just projecting some kind of made up war, like right now. I don't understand as to why a lot of you Christians seem to be attacking Japan for whatever reason. And yes, I made several videos when it comes to this kind of thing. This was not the only time, but it just seems to be a common thing here. Yeah, I mentioned this multiple times. Another thing is that, and I'm speaking of repeating myself, and then repeating myself, and then repeating myself, and then repeating myself, is that this is not a Christian nation. It is not a Christian nation whatsoever. Like, at all. It never was, and it never should be.
It's real out there. There's a reality here. It's time to wake up and turn off the television set and realize that we live in a real world. And we got to get real with it. And folks, the only way you're going to understand that real world is by checking out the real Word of God, and getting His truth and start interpreting your reality around you by means of His Word. And that's what we do every day on this program. We bring the Word of God to bear on every area of life. And we define our reality, the real reality, by the real God who is real. Ladies and gentlemen, you can interact with this radio program by emailing me directly at host@kevinswanson.com, and you can hear the program anytime, anywhere in the world at kevinswanson.com. This is Kevin Swanson.
All right, that'll be it. That's pretty much where his podcast thing ends, really, folks. It's a whole lot of nothing, like we were saying a moment ago. And so, yeah, he's trying to find some kind of basis as to why society is changing nowadays compared to when he was younger, when he was growing up. I mean, yes, it just comes off like when he was growing up, he was living in a bubble. That's how it's coming off. At least from my point of view, that's how he's coming off. I still don't know what Disney has to do with anything, but okay. But all right, sure, whatever. I mean, yes, like I was saying, yes, entertainment, even if it's just specific for teenagers. Okay, let's just say that's narrow it down for that. Even if it's just for teenagers, yes, the way it was back in the 70s and 80s, even that changed. Compared to nowadays, teen entertainment is not going to be the same forever. It's what you call stagnation. Of course it's going to change, and that's fine. Are you trying to suggest that anime itself as a whole is teen entertainment? Is that what you're saying? Like the whole Gospel Girl TV show? I don't see the connection here. Yes, reality shows have been a thing for a good while, of course. And it's still a popular thing, at least to some extent, even nowadays. That's true. But so what? I mean, yes, there's an exaggeration of it. I mean, there's so many reality shows nowadays. Yes, there's plenty of it nowadays. There's a huge exaggeration. That's actually true. But again, the problem here, he's trying to use a bit of truth to manipulate the situation into, like, there's some kind of spiritual warfare, like he was saying a moment ago. But there's nothing that's not there. Whatever he's saying, it doesn't exist, like, at all. And again, I know, excuse me, I'm repeating myself. I'm getting tired of repeating myself. I swear to God. If a lot of these programs were promoting the idea that women should be fruitful and multiply, he wouldn't be complaining. And if anything, he'd be praising it. So, again, I don't see what the problem is, really, because he just comes off like he's just making shit up, which he technically is. He's just making shit up, and some kind of vague, loose connection of this, really, at the end of the day. And I just don't get it. I don't get any of this, like, whatsoever. I don't see what the actual problem is, because the actual problem, it doesn't exist. It's a made-up problem, is basically what I don't get it. If I want to summarize it, it's a made-up problem. So, okay, I still don't know what this has to do with women wanting to have sex during the day. If they want to, let them. I find it creepy that you want to control what they're going to do with their body parts. What, are you going to go to their bedroom and just look at them? Is that what you're going to do? Just make sure they're doing it properly? Or what do you think to be appropriate and whatnot? So you're telling me that you're going to just watch from a distance? You realize there's some people who are into that, right? There's some people who actually do like being watched. I mean, to each their own, I guess. Whatever, I suppose. But I still don't know what the issue is exactly. This whole spiritual warfare, it doesn't exist. Of course, I'm not surprised at all that he's, of course, going to talk about something about the Japanese. That's no shocker to me, like, at all. But anyway, I do appreciate anybody for watching this, really. I know this has been, again, a rather lengthy video. I know these types of videos, I tend to be fairly lengthy, so I'm just saying that I do appreciate that. Thank you for watching, really. So, whoever you are, thank you very much. I really do appreciate. Of course, I just thought I'd just do this because it does give me an excuse to talk about anime, which I've been wanting to do anyway. And to be honest with you, I've been wanting to talk about anime anyway. So I just thought this seemed like a perfect opportunity to do so because, like I said, I want to talk about some Japanese stuff. And I just want to talk about anime. So here we are, I guess. Whatever. So I don't do this, of course, for that reason, because I want to talk about something Japanese related, obviously. So here we are, of course. But yeah, all in all, it's just, I don't know anymore. It just seems crazy. So thanks for watching. See you.